I can still hear the song. I don't know if you ever... Oh, I can still hear it in my head, and my eyes start twitching.
Hey guys, welcome to our video.
That's Sarah, part of the duo behind Chris and Sara, the YouTube channel with over 140,000 subscribers here on YouTube. They might not be thrilled that I used part of that clip because they have lots of different feelings about that video, but for the rest of you, I think that gives you a lot of context. Now, that clip is actually part of their very first video here on YouTube and part of their biggest video as well. The very first video that Chris and Sara have posted went viral right out of the gate with over 1 million views almost overnight, and that video now has over 5 million views total. But if you're gonna build a real business that is primarily based off of YouTube, how do you actually build a sustainable business from just going viral? And thankfully, I had the chance to talk to Chris and Sara more in depth and how they've been able to kind of use this viral video, the pros and cons of going viral, and how they've been able to build a sustainable business to over $200,000 in annual revenue, primarily based off of YouTube. Before we get into their YouTube journey and their business growth, let me actually give you a little bit of context of what Chris and Sara were doing before they started their YouTube channel. And actually, instead of me explaining it, let me actually use one of Chris and Sara's oldest videos on YouTube because I actually think they explained it the best.
It's sort of hard for me to explain what I do for a living because I'm a jack of all trades.
He's an independent communications consultant.
Independent?
Yes.
No, that's code for unemployed.
Some days I'm a graphic designer, some days I'm a videographer, some days I'm a marketer. So I do like to call myself a digital marketing strategist. So I get to work with a lot of cool businesses, a lot of cool authors and nonprofits, and whatever their story is, whatever service, or maybe it's a different product, or something that they want to tell the world about, I get to help them with it. So that's what I do for a living. I didn't go to school for this. My first job, somebody wanted to pay me or hire me to make a business card for them. And so I didn't know how to use Photoshop. I didn't know how to use Illustrator or anything like that. And so I actually learned from YouTube, and that's how I got my start.
I have my bachelor's in communications, and I guess I've kind of worked a few different jobs along the way. I've only been out of school for almost 4 years now, but in that time I've tried a few different things. Currently, I am a photographer, and I launched into my own business about a year and a half ago, and it's still very much in the growing stages, and I want to be completely transparent about that. It's only gotten harder to grow being on the road, and that was something we knew going into it. I've been able to pick up small gigs here and there on the road, definitely in the hustle mode. But because we've been in a van and we're saving money, we were also able to afford for me to go back to school in the last, 4 months? I guess I've been in school
like
4 months now.
Yeah.
So I'm actually in school to become a software developer. Half of my time is spent earning money and growing my photography business, and the other half of my time is spent learning a new skill set. And that's just one of the benefits for us working on the road, is saving money and allowing me to go back and learn something that I've always had interest in learning.
So as Chris and Sara mentioned there, they both have the ability to work remotely, and the reason they decided to move into a van is kind of twofold. First is that they were having some landlord issues and rent was going really high when where they were living in Seattle. And second, they also want to be able to travel more and kind of explore more of the world, and the van would allow them to do that. So they moved into the van in 2018, and soon after moving in, they decided to travel down to Disney World, and this is what kind of kickstarts their YouTube journey. But instead of me explaining that, here's Chris and Sara to explain why Disney World was such a big deal.
Your first video is your biggest video, and I know you hate it. Like, why create that video? Like in the first place.
We're gonna give you the inside scoop of why we created this video.
Oh my gosh,
So-
I can still hear the song. I don't know if you ever... Oh, I can still hear it in my head,
So,
and my eyes start
Look,
twitching.
this is the real reason why we create it. I kept pushing Sara. I was like, I want to be Casey Neistat. Like, that's literally why I was
So
like,
we went to Thailand 8 years ago.
Yeah.
He tried to get me to vlog 8 years ago, and it took me 2.5 more years before he finally got me in front of the camera.
But anyway, so we started doing the van thing and started traveling, and we were at Disney World, and that's where that video was filmed, was at Disney World, at the campground at Disney World. And because we're so legit outdoor people. And so we're at Disney World, and they've got golf carts going around everywhere, and all of a sudden this older couple comes up, they see our van, they want to see inside of it, and they have this little dog with a GoPro, and they're filming their dog. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we've got a YouTube channel. It's with our dog, and it's wherever he travels. And they were so sweet. And then I knew exactly what type of video it was because it was on GoPro, you know, all this. And then they left, and I looked at Sarah, and I'm like, if they have a YouTube channel, we need to have a YouTube channel.
So he made me get in front of the camera the next day. He's like, get in there and do the tour on the van. Because, you know, this is like early van life. Like, there were, the going thing to do was like a tour of your van. Like, people were just like, eating that up. And so we did a tour of the van, and it ended up just being me and Kramer. And
5 million views later.
But I kept saying, like, we. That was like the pronoun I kept using in the video. It was like, we. And people were like, who's we? You and the dog? I was like, no, Chris is back there too.
Not once did I say a word during that video. You don't even see me. Like, and then people were like, this is like MTV Cribs, you know, for van. And I'm like, I did it. And I will say that video, has it paid for the van?
Yeah, the video alone, the ad revenue on that video, which wasn't even monetized until like half of like the first million or two, has more than paid for that conversion, which is crazy.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can't be mad. Like, we saw that day when it like crossed over, and yeah, it's like, okay, it was worth it.
So there's a lot of takeaways in that short clip, but it's wild to me that because of some dog with a GoPro on it ends up motivating them to create their very first YouTube video, and then that video ends up paying for their entire van conversion, which was tens of thousands of dollars. Like, that's just a really wild journey, and it's just crazy to think about, actually. But that virality really gave them a huge kickstart to YouTube and really convinced Chris and Sarah, like, hey, we should actually take YouTube more seriously. And they did that. But after going viral, right, there's a lot of obviously pros because right now you have this audience and gives you this really huge head start. But it also comes with a lot of different challenges because, like, how do you actually think about growth and how do you actually hit this huge bar that you set right out of the gate? But instead of kind of me explaining kind of their approach to YouTube and how they kind of the pros and cons of going viral, here's Chris and Sarah to explain.
Oh my gosh, YouTube's always changing. This is something we were talking about, is consistency. And like, if we continue to create quality content, we do believe that over time you can see that upward turn, the upward growth of it, no matter what YouTube does. And so far it's been true for us.
Yeah, I think going viral though, because it put us into this demographic that we didn't want to be in, or we didn't realize we even wanted to be in it. And then it took us a while to, one, get consistent on like, do we really want to do this? Is this full time? Like, do we want to grow? And then if so, like, what are we going to do it about? Is it going to be about the van? Is it going to be about our travel? And then we actually, like, we saw other people making more documentaries about their travels rather than the vans. And we're like, I like that better. And so that's kind of what we geared towards, or that's what we focused towards. And a lot of our audience was very resistant on that. They're like, I don't care about you're in Arches or wherever. I care that you were in this van with the Do IMAX. So it took a long time for us to like once we were determined to be travel, like we're going to be travel, and we lost a lot of subscribers. Like, we didn't grow, and we're like, all right, you have to keep going. And then inevitably another video will pop off with that subject. So
Yeah, it takes a while, but it's definitely like, growth is always in mind. But it's definitely a long game with YouTube. Same for blogging. You just have to keep being consistent and just kind of shove it down their throats a little bit.
It's like you grip their head and you're like, I'm going to be this way, and you're going to like it, you know? And it's probably not the best way to look at a relationship with people, but that's how we had to look at our audience for a while.
I was done talking about the van toilet. I couldn't talk about it again.
Yeah.
I was so sick of talking about that stupid toilet.
How do you use a toilet in the van? The same way we use a toilet in the house.
So the strategy of avoiding the van toilets and just staying more consistent with the vision that they've had for content and for YouTube content has worked. If you fast forward to 2024, they've now published over 200 videos on YouTube, and over a dozen of them have over 200,000 views on YouTube. And the majority of those major videos are actually more about their adventures and more consistent with the vision that they've had for content. There are a couple of videos more about their vans and the vehicles that they're living in because they are now on their third different vehicle. They've now sold their first van, they sold their second van, and are now living in a truck camper and taking that and traveling down to South America, and are documenting and sharing their adventures on YouTube still to this day. As you can notice, right, they've been working on YouTube for now 6 years, and they built a really sustainable business that goes along with it, with YouTube as the centerpiece of it. But let's break down actually their revenue streams a little more in depth. About 70% of their revenue actually comes from brand deals and affiliates. So these brand deals are probably more sponsored deals or maybe sponsored, posts on YouTube and Instagram, I would say. And the affiliate links are those links maybe you see in the description where people click through them, and if people buy anything, right, they get a percent of the sales that come with that. And so again, that's 70% of the revenue. Now, 20% of the revenue still comes from freelance projects that Chris has made most of his living off of. And now Sarah's actually helping a little bit with this, but this might look like doing different website projects, doing more like book covers or things like that. It's still doing some of these freelance projects, and so that way they have kind of a more diversified set of revenue. But then there's this last 10%, and the last 10% is kind of broken down into two chunks, I would say. The 5% of it actually is based off their blog and the affiliate links within that. And then the last 5%, I'm going to call it the miscellaneous bucket, which is probably primarily just kind of the small digital products that they've created through Chris and Sarah and their YouTube channels. There's a course there, and there's actually sold kind of old templates in the past as well. So that's the high level story of Chris and Sarah. And obviously, if you want to really nerd out on their story, you can check out all of their content right here on YouTube. But with that out of the way, what I want to do is actually go a little bit deeper into how they've been able to grow their business and break it down into 3 different growth strategies. But before we get into each of those individual strategies, what I want to do is actually have Chris and Sarah explain a little bit how they're thinking about future growth.
Our main one that we're really investing in is our website and our blog right now. We love YouTube, and I think I will always create something in the future, but I don't know what the demand of seeing like a 75-year-old Chris on camera in like Mexico, in the Bahamas. I don't know how many people want to see this. And so I kind of see the writing on the wall, like in that regard of like, okay, we need an end game. And then, being online, we'll be in the blogger sphere and we'll see people. They're like, I'm making, 6 figures, 7 figures from my website. And I'm like, you're not as engaging as like other people that I know. Like, how are you doing this? And, realizing a lot of it is through their website, through the traffic, through that. So that's kind of been our big push lately.
Yeah, and even with Google and all the updates you always hear about this year, like you still own the website, which is really nice. So it's not completely predictable like an email list is, but we've definitely grown that. We've put like 12 or 14 months into really growing the blog, and it's doing decently well. I mean, for being a new blog, we're getting a decent amount of traffic. It's monetized. We're making about $1,000 a month right now on it, and it's going. So we're trying to grow there, and we're really trying to grow the email list because we would own that, or do own that, and then the podcast. So all these kind of work together. But I'd say we're spending less time on things like TikTok and Instagram for sure, just because I don't think they're very predictable.
No.
And it takes up a lot of energy for something that we're not as passionate about. They're still there, but we're using it more of like a social win versus like a content creation.
Yeah. Of any of the platforms, YouTube is the one that we will probably YouTube, I feel like, is the one that like they love to cohabitate with creators, and like where Instagram and TikTok, it's just like they have a fund for creators. It's like an afterthought. I'm like, I'll never be able to work with you in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like the quality of people that are on YouTube, or like they're investing more because they're watching more, and there's like the build a trust factor.
Yeah.
Like, because TikTok, like I was talking to some other people, and they're like, yeah, like I have 100,000 people on TikTok, but like if I do a public event, no one's coming.
Yeah, it's a totally different
crazy.
audience. And there's things about their audience that we wish we had, and vice versa. I mean, you always want what you can't have, but I mean, at TravelCon, we were talking to a bunch of creators, and it seems like 1 million TikToks followers is kind of equivalent to like 50 or 100,000 YouTube. Like it's just, but they're very different. Then you look at like an email list, and 5,000 is incredibly valuable compared to 100,000 on YouTube. It's just, I mean, they really are different audiences.
I remember talking to like a really well-known like Instagram content creator, and we told her, we were like, well, we're on YouTube. And she's like, oh, your fans are different. Like you're like, it's just a different mentality.
And she's got like 1 million on Instagram, and she's like, I can't get my audience to show up like for like real events. Like she has a dedicated following, but they're mostly just there to like lurk or get inspired, and they don't show up to like events and that kind of thing. So it's not to say they're always going to show up for us, but we did sell out a trip to Iceland. So we did have at least 14 people who wanted to travel internationally with us.
Who spent like thousands of dollars to travel with us. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's also in how you like grow the audience too. It's how much you put into it and what kind of content you're creating too. And I think that's the thing that we really are leaning into is like the longer forms of content. So the 20+ minute YouTube videos, we cannot do a shorter reel to save our lives. Like it just, we've tried, our brains don't think like that. That is just not the type of content we love. But like long form videos, long blog post and then podcasting. I mean, all those people are going to be on our website to read the blog post for 10 plus minutes. And that's a long time we have their attention. And you can, even if it gets less views, you can charge more for that because the retention rate overall it's a long time.
Yeah.
And we enjoy that type of content too.
So there's a lot to unpack there in that summary, but let's start with growth strategy number 1, and that is social media. And this growth strategy is obvious because, right, YouTube is a big core part of their business, but I actually think it's really interesting how they're approaching YouTube because they're not approaching it from like a shorts or the reels, these like right short video clips that I think a lot of people are really trying to target. They're actually going in the opposite direction. They are going actually longer. If you look at the videos Chris and Sara published in the last 6 months, you might notice something really interesting. And that is that their longest video of 1 hour and 27 minutes about Brazil is their most successful video in terms of views on YouTube. And I don't know the device breakdown of that video, but I think it might point to a larger trend, and that is that YouTube is actually investing more and more into those watching on their smart TVs. So if shorts aren't for you and you're thinking about building a business around YouTube, look into more of this trend. And there's been other YouTubers like Colin and Samir who've talked about this, about YouTube wanting to compete with like Disney Plus and like Hulu and Netflix, right? YouTube wants to compete with them. And so I would be interested in seeing if this longer type of content that's over an hour long, can you actually build a really solid YouTube channel by going, instead of shorts, can you go even longer and build more of these like movie and TV style type of content? Now, outside of YouTube, Chris and Sara still have a presence on other platforms, and their second biggest platform is Instagram, where they have about 21,000 followers there. But on other platforms, right, they're kind of more like normal, where they have less than 1,000 followers, or they don't have really a following at all. And even on those platforms, they still have been able to create opportunities. When people post on these different platforms like Twitter or Threads, right, if there's like someone who's like, hey, do I know a designer? Chris will sometimes be like, hey, that's me. And actually, Chris has mentioned that he actually has gotten some of his biggest and most significant clients just by saying like, hey, that's me on these different platforms. So it's proof that even if you don't have a huge following on, maybe like a LinkedIn or, a Twitter or a Threads, right, you can still find lots of opportunity just by saying like, yep, I can help with that. The second growth strategy I want to talk about is one that I really wasn't going to predict for Chris and Sara, but it ends up being a really significant one, and that is SEO. And this one is especially surprising because I actually spent the few days before this conversation with Chris and Sara of hearing from other creators, entrepreneurs of like, oh, SEO is dying, I'm losing so much revenue. My search results and the traffic to my websites is tanking because SEO is not good. And then I meet with Sara and she's like, oh, I built the blog in the last 12 months and we're making over $1,000 a month just by, prioritizing blogging and SEO. So I think this is proof that, yes, SEO is evolving and changing quite a bit, but I don't think it's necessarily dying per se. I think it's going to be a bumpy road as more AI tools and Google is prioritizing more AI, but I think this is proof that it's more evolving and not dying. The third growth strategy I want to talk about here is one I've talked about a lot on this channel, and that is relationships. And this is really how Chris specifically got his start into entrepreneurship. Basically, someone asked him to design a business card and he didn't know how to, but he still said yes to it. And Chris continued to do that more and more. He would learn the skill set, and it actually helped him build his freelancing business in a really big way. And it's also helped Chris and Sara develop a really broad and diverse and more generalist skill set. And I think you can see that in terms of their revenue structure and how they built their business, but also in terms of their content. It's a pretty diverse set of content and how they go about doing things. The other thing I want to mention here too is actually how they invest into people. And I had that incredible opportunity to see them give a workshop at an event and got to see how they were just investing in people that might not become, potential clients, and they might not become brand partners either. They were just kind of investing in people, maybe, aspiring creators or people or creators that might not be as, significant as them in terms of revenue, growth, but they just invested all the different people, and they were super genuine and kind and just willing to help wherever they could. And that skill set, I think, is one of the most underrated skill sets in terms of being a creator specifically, because if you don't know how to invest in relationships, I think it's really hard to do collaborations with other creators, and also really hard to kind of invest with other brands, because brands still want you to care about what they are offering as well. You can learn more about Chris and Sara here on YouTube, and you can also check them out more at chrisandsara.com. If you found this video helpful, I would love it if you can give it a like. And if you're looking for more content like this, check out the newsletter in the description below.